I think start. It's 5:30. Yeah, Joy's there.
I'm here.
Great. We're here. I think we can start.
Good.
Evening and welcome to the meeting, March 5th, 2025 of the Manitou Springs Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of the Historic Preservation Commission is to protect and enhance districts of historic significance and instill and foster civic pride in the legacy and achievements of the past, and to improve the economic vitality of the historic areas of the community through encouraging compatible rehabilitation of historic structures. The Historic Preservation Commission is responsible for reviewing plans for building in the historic districts for architectural appropriateness and to ensure proposals meet the city's design guidelines, which are based on the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. We'll start out by taking roll. Would you like to introduce yourself, Joy?
I'm Joy Porter, Commissioner.
I'm Matt Rose, Vice Chair.
Matt Murphy, Commissioner.
Doug Edmondson, Commissioner.
Ann Nichols, Commissioner.
And Laura Kinseth, Chair. Thank you. First item is approval of the minutes from February 5th. Are there any comments or corrections? No?
No corrections from me.
I just noticed one thing. By the way, very thorough coverage of our CPI discussion. It was great. I did notice that there was one word in the first paragraph of that item number 4, I think. It was just the word, which is a new word that was coined by one of the speakers. The minutes say intrification, and it's just actually withintrification. That's it. Okay, is there any public comment on non-agenda item? What?
I think we should vote.
I
Oh my
move
goodness.
to accept the minutes as amended by Chair Kinseth.
I'll second that.
Oh,
Or
All in
someone-
favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 3. Public comment on non-agenda items. No? Is there any notice of council action?
No, I do not have any notice of council action at this time.
Thanks. And unfinished business.
There is no unfinished business at this time.
Hey, thanks. So we'll move on to new business. The order of proceedings for tonight's public hearing items is, first we'll have staff presentation. Commissioners will then ask questions of staff. Then the applicant will give a statement. Commissioners may ask questions of the applicant. And then we will open it up to public comment to include statements in favor, statements opposed, applicant rebuttal, and then we'll close public comment. Then there will be a discussion by commissioners, a motion to approve, And further discussion and vote. Okay. Any decision item by this commission may be appealed by the city council by filing a written notice of appeal with the city clerk's office within 10 calendar days of the decision. Please see staff for further information. Do any commissioners have ex parte communications or conflict of interest to declare tonight? Nope.
No.
Okay. We'll go ahead with MCAC 2501-308 Ruxton Avenue, exterior alterations.
For the record, Zachary Davison, planner. MCAC 2501 at 308 Ruxton. The homeowner is seeking an MCAC to replace the existing windows with energy efficient vinyl windows, replace the window jambs and all associated mechanisms, replace the siding where necessary with 1x6 tongue and groove, and replace the trim where necessary with 1x4 cedar. The property is zoned general residential and it is in the Ruxton Historic Subdistrict. And it is considered a contributing structure according to the historic inventory done in 1991. Here is a site overview of 308. And here is a plan. There is some slight deviation to the original dimensions outlined here for each window that they will change. In red, if you can see it, I know it doesn't stand out very well. In red, there is a portion that was approved for an administrative demolition about a week or two ago. These are older photos of the conditions of the house. As it was, we did receive a complaint about work being done on the house. The windows were removed. And then we reached out and did get in contact with the homeowner and were able to kind of set things right. This is the current condition of the house. They were approved to tack in the windows as they were so that the house did not sit without windows. So they're just presently tacked in. They are not framed or trim, I should say, actually. And if the committee moves to approve MCAC 2501, the planning department has absolutely no conditions. The motion language, you can approve MCAC at 308 Ruxton without conditions, approve MCAC at 308 Ruxton with conditions, deny MCAC at 308 Ruxton, or postpone MCAC until April 2nd, 2025 for further consideration.
We ask some questions.
Do any, oh, were you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff?
I do. Can you flip back to the photo of the work that's been done?
There you go.
So it looks like the second story addition over the porch has been removed already,
Correct, yes.
and the windows in the packet have been installed already.
They are tacked in. They're not fully installed. It was, the homeowner was informed that to not do anything more than tack them in the off chance that it isn't approved and they can be removed.
So
I also have a question. And Doug, maybe you can explain this. What were the original grids And were they like the newer windows that are tacked in? I didn't see that way.
Okay, are you asking about the window makeup, the material that they were comprised
No,
of?
I was asking about the grids, you know, it seemed like in the original, it looked like almost single hung. And with, I'm not sure what's in the bay window, there's like either wood across or some kind of bar likes, is that original? Doug, would you know that?
I do believe there, I'm gonna try and maybe zoom in here and see if. But yes, the windows are separated. Um, the one to the right and the one on the second story. Oh, correct. Yes, and I think right, yeah, and there's some screen here, and as
Doug,
That's what they look like.
Doug, I can't hear you.
out your microphone. I was thinking about the person doing minutes later.
So Joy, I was explaining to them that the reason why it appears that way is just the windows are just partially open, therefore it's revealing the frame top and bottom. And that these are just traditional double hung windows.
Okay,
Oh, that period.
all right, thank you, Doug. I knew you'd have an explanation.
Could you go back to the current condition? Please. Oh, thanks. Okay. Any more questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I just have one more.
Oh,
So the, and I suppose if we're gonna hear from the homeowners, I could ask this question then too, but I'm just curious what the intent to put the front porch back to the way it used to look. You can see on one of the photos before the second story was removed that some of the ornamentation there. And in the write-up, that was gonna be restored to some former appearance. I just was curious what that's gonna be.
maybe that's a good question for the applicant. So we'll ask the applicants to come up, please.
I had a couple of questions, but.
Did you? I'm sorry. And introduce yourselves and give your name and address. Oh, right.
I
Okay,
can't
good
hear.
evening. My name is Josh Allen. This is my wife, Ashley. Thank you for seeing us this evening. And we are actually currently residing at 924 Prospect Place. We are renting with Summit Ministries, if you're familiar with them. And we are currently renovating 308 Ruxton Avenue. So I don't know if it would help for me to introduce myself a little bit more to get you all to know us better. Would that be helpful? As you can see, we're in the military. We moved here in August. And actually, my wife, Ashley, and I are expecting our first child in July. And we're actually getting ready to exit the service. So we were really hoping to make this place a good exit strategy to come and raise our family, our first child. And this is actually our first home. I am from rural Alabama, where I grew up in a home built in 1848. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart, that I dearly care about the historical accuracy of things. And I do know that, unfortunately, there was some miscommunication on my behalf on the understanding of what meant like for like. Day one, January 16th, when we closed, my very first stop was actually to the planning committee, and I wanted to introduce myself and communicate that I want to make sure whatever we do is correct. And my understanding for windows, if they were being replaced like for like, was it was not necessary for a permit, but I did not realize that like for like also included the material going from wood to vinyl. I assumed, again, my misunderstanding was the same size, dimension, and therefore. And also the removal of the windows, unfortunately, and this is my responsibility, were done without my approval at the time. So them being removed in plastic, that was definitely something that I did not desire, and I by no means wanted to create any offense. I care deeply about wanting to add to the value of Manitou. We really love this area and have had years in the past coming up and working with Summit, and was really hoping to make this place just have a second life. Because unfortunately, another reason for the removal of the windows was the extreme deterioration of the home. It was extremely neglected, and we were hoping to give it a second life, and also to be a home for our first child, to start our first place. So that's a little bit about ourselves. Yeah, and I don't know if my wife has anything to add, but that's just who we are. And by all means, we come wanting to learn, to do the right thing, but also to do a great service to the community. It's a place that is near and dear to our hearts, that we fall in love quickly. And we would love to give this home a second chance, but also bring it as close to possible to the original home. Because unfortunately, the things done to it throughout the years that we have seen, as we've uncovered, as we've been looking into the home, has been extremely neglected, and it's a shame what has been done to the home. And so we're trying to bring it back to our very greatest ability within a very tight budget, being our first home and having a lot in the future, to do our very best to give it a second life. So hopefully that can help you guys understand where we're coming from, who we are, and more than happy to answer any questions. So.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Yeah, I guess so. Thank you for that. That was really adding a lot of insight. Yeah, like I had asked earlier, I think in the write-up, you mentioned you were planning to put the front porch back on. I just couldn't see it, I guess, because you stopped. But what's your plan with that? Do you have an idea of what it used to look like and how you'll get back to it?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the entire porch itself was beyond repair. The posts were actually held together with river rocks, and the beams that I tried to salvage when we went to remove the add-on, that I don't know when that was put on, literally disintegrated. The spindles actually took a chisel and tried to salvage every individual one. But the condition of the whole porch, it was sincerely beyond repair. We were hoping to salvage it, but it just, when I say that the wood fell apart, we did our very best to salvage all of it, and I wanted to be able to do that. But the whole porch was beyond repair, unfortunately. And I don't know how we can replace it due to budget. It's a very expensive line item, and to also match all of the spindles. But we do have them set to the side if we can somehow in the future be able to find a near match. But unfortunately, due to the condition of the porch, over years, it's so rotten. I just wasn't able to do so, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
So and I just had a follow-up question. So the long posts that we see with the milling, at the top and the bottom, you're not going to replace any of those at this time? Or any of the lattice going across, it just you're not able to do that?
Correct. Upon trying to salvage them, like I said, the way that it was held was literally resting on just normal rocks. And so over time, water had collected and from the bottom up rotted at least a good 1.5 foot section of the bottom. And the whole wood itself was splintered. And upon removing it, the top itself looked like it had, over time, someone tried to repair, and at least a good 2 to 6 inches per post were just completely like scabbed together with extra wood. So they weren't even original as is. Looks like someone had gone in and shimmed it and just done different like makeshift repairs. So just in general, the condition of the posts, I don't know how we can reuse them, unfortunately, due to neglect over the years.
Thank you.
Okay, So in the staff's review, it was stated that this is considered a contributing structure in the Ruxton sub-district, which means that architectural elements, particularly original ones, fall under our purview and guidelines. One thing I can say is that it's very unusual for this to be far as long as it is, particularly with the demolition of an architectural element that was original to the building without being vetted by the Historic Preservation Commission first. I don't know how that protocol got lapsed, but normally buildings like this, particularly when you're going to have some sort of architectural or engineering done on it, usually comes to us first before it's released for permitting. So I don't know how that got overlooked, but I'm sorry that that happened to you guys. With that said, as this came to light, we received our package. So I drove by the building after the porch had been removed. And it's very obvious that the porch, post, and cover that was on the west side of the building were original to the building, because the original cover had left a scar on the side of the building where it had never been painted. Pretty obvious to see that in the siding. I'm sure you saw that also. So I think, so talking about what the Matt's have talked about over here, and the fact that our guidelines specifically state that the protection of original architectural elements fall under our purview. I feel that one of the recommendations that I will be making is that that deck be restored. It's part of restoring a Victorian building or late Victorian cottage. This is almost farmhouse style. I can appreciate that those elements have rotted, but those type of spindle posts actually can be acquired very readily. And I can say this because the Colorado Historical Society and Colorado Preservation Inc. has vetted a outlet in the Denver area. That is that can be used. The materials from there can be used for historic restoration that are fairly inexpensive. They're reasonably priced, so on and so forth. But yeah, I could, trust me, I do this for a living. I restore these old buildings for a living. Everything you guys are going through is just my daily life. And I really appreciate where you're coming from and what you're doing to the building. I know that a lot what you're getting into is gone. Obviously, the other commissioners haven't said anything about the proportions of the windows that have already been replaced, but I mean, the cat's already out of the bag on that. But as far as the porch, posts, and cover, I feel that architectural element's very important to the feel of this building, particularly in its place in the community and in that particular sub-district as a historic element for architectural element that needs to be restored to the building. So that's just, that's my take on it. And again, this is a sort of thing where even though an administrative demolition permit can be given, it should have been vetted first because it was an original architectural element of the building, and we should have had a chance to take a look at that first to give our recommendations. So Tabor Mill Outlet in Denver is basically state renowned, and you can get anything from them. Tabor, as in like Tabor Grand, Tabor, Baby Doe Tabor, all those things. So that's where I'm at with it, and good luck, because I know how much work it is. That's for sure.
Can we see the picture with the tacked in windows again? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I guess maybe a question for the applicant is, you had indicated that you didn't think that the budget you've allocated for this project would allow you to replace that porch. Is that something you can look into, or is that something we could potentially give them time to do? Or, I mean, to some degree, I'm looking to staff as well.
We had discussed the grant, which we are going to introduce after this MCAC. Unfortunately, the grant is not retroactive, so it can no longer be applied to the windows as they are. So beyond that, we haven't given it any more discussion as to the funding of the windows, but we will be introducing the mini grant for other repairs on the house.
Could it be used then to get the posts for the porch to restore it? I mean, could the grant also used for that, or,
Yes, they could.
okay,
And if the applicant can wait until the next year's grant round, they could apply that at that time if they bring in, the process for that is to bring in plans that shows you're rebuilding that porch according to the way it was built in the past. Do you have any old photographs that show the roof line or was that shown on the house when you?
So yeah, you can see the scarring on the side of the house that the porch post and cover was original to the building. And I will also make another suggestion. I don't know if you've ever remodeled houses before or anything like that, or dealt with the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department, but I did notice that you have open to homeowners permit, and it is a lot easier for you to advance your agenda and have permits or plans vetted under one permit than going back and doing it again. So once you have, you've pulled a homeowner's permit, going in and having your engineer who wrote you your letter do a basic drawing of some footers for your posts and on how this will attach to your building, because they are going to want to see that. And it is not a maybe thing. Anything that's over your head has to be drawn, inspected, and vetted by Pikes Peak Regional Building Department. And it's a lot easier to do it in one swing of the bat than it is to go back and have it done again. So it's just for your convenience, and it would be much easier. And if we are talking later today about a grant potential of $2,000, this as a project on its own, that'll buy a lot of lumber.
Just as a suggestion there, I don't, is the Tabor place new or is it salvaged, or I've not been there, but a salvage, I was going to suggest salvage as well, because I've only been here for a little over a year, so I don't know of a place. But I know there were several where I used to live in Illinois that had some great old architectural elements that you might be able to take advantage of.
So unfortunately, the answer to that is really not. There
No.
was a couple places in Denver that have closed in the last couple of years. They were basically had fell victim to COVID. There's one that has very high-end architectural elements like fireplaces and trim woods and other things like that. But Tabor is a mill. They actually make this stuff brand new. So, and it's one of the things that they can do is, like, if you have a piece of specialized trim wood in your house and you can't find that anywhere, they'll actually make the knife and cut it and run it for you. Like, that's if you're doing $150,000 worth of oak inside your house, which you're not. You're looking for 4 posts, and they will probably have something right off the shelf that's right next door to this. And the gingerbread trim, you can get that stuff through Home Depot and stuff, man. It's actually fairly inexpensive.
Yeah, I was gonna say, those posts I think are pretty standard, because I
Yeah.
know my house is the same. They have
Yeah.
the same posts on that, and I've seen them in a few others in the town. So
May I ask a question just for clarification in the minutes and as we kind of move forward to the next phase? Zach, would you mind pulling that initial diagram back up for the front view? When we're talking about the porch, so the area outlined in red on the top with that one window in it was, so the home itself at one point in time was subdivided into 2 units. And that room, that area on top was the kitchen of that other unit. The area when we're talking about going back and the porch element is, the porch element that I'm perceiving when looking at this picture is actually inset from that addition. So Commissioner Edmondson, when you're talking about restoring it, it would be you having that structure that we can see, and then a roof profile, we'll say similar to what we're seeing on that sort of front window where you have just a sort of a small roof. My clarification is that that new porch roof line is not up at the top at the
Here,
same.
I got to do this.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay. So here we go.
I think I know what you're saying, but I want to make sure I'm not making an assumption.
Yeah, they used to do this kind of garbage all the time. So they just hung this thing on here and did these posts like this. So the original post here, post here, post here, porch, post, and cover. And you can see the scar on the side of the building that goes up here like this. It would have been a one-on-one pitch too. So that was originally how it was done. And like I said, the most expensive elements are going to be your post, and then your spindles, and all this stuff is pretty readily available. And then you just do a pitch roof up against it and have your architect, your engineer draw it for you. Now do it, attach it to your main permit now. It'll save you a lot of heartache.
Can you point again? Are you, are you saying that the porch, the roof on the porch, the roof line would be the same as the top peak, a 112 pitch?
The same angle.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
Yes. But it won't
Below.
come in contact with the eave. You can see it on the side of the building where it was.
It would just be steep. It wouldn't be flat like the
Yeah.
other side. It would be steeper
steep.
like the peak at the top.
Yeah, that would be architecturally correct for what was originally built there. In all actuality, it probably has some sort of like or half ornate reveal, like a half fan or something in it. That was really typical of Victorian period. But well, we didn't ask you to do that. I mean, we don't have any evidence of that being there. So, but it's easy. I mean, you know, and it'll look beautiful, and you'll have a porch. Sit out there and listen to the creek.
Yeah, and if just full disclosure for you all, not to get into a lot of our personal details, but as far as this budget has gone, I'm just speaking financially. We're well over 30% more into it because unfortunately, when you touch one thing, three things come up. And not only that, an issue also with the windows, a lot of them were busted and broken. We've had that really negative 10-degree cold weather. Unfortunately, our water line decided to go out. And so we now have to spend $20,000 for a water line. So to say that we don't have the money right now to do that, it's hard. So sorry, don't mean to get emotional. It's just a lot. So I don't know if we can do it now. Well, I don't know when we can do it. I obviously have every intention to make it as beautiful as possible, but the ability right now to spend $1 more than we can is just not feasible. You know, hopefully when we're done, it's going to be, you know, beautiful inside and out. But as of right now, the things that we have run into, the extreme deterioration has very much so not only has that eaten into our budget, but in addition, having to, I mean, you know, Ruxton, that creek, it's very difficult to do a new water line. So that was a big blow. So as far as finances go, I just don't know how this very moment we can do this, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of just so you all full disclosure know where we are. That was a bit of a, you know, there's always surprises, but that was a really unfortunate one. That we have to have water, obviously. So, and that's a very expensive line item. So I just, as far as the ability to get to it with speed, I just don't know when I can tell you that's possible. Because yeah, we just don't, even for the water line, I don't know how we can afford that, but we're going to find a way. So unfortunately, the porch, that's going to be difficult to address this very second, if that makes sense. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Ashley. As Josh mentioned earlier, I guess I just also wanted to give my thought and input as well, just coming from the perspective of the homeowner versus the historical side. I know that we're both coming from different, you know, perspectives, and historical is important, especially with Manitou. It's a really neat place. But then also the homeowner side of, we're a couple that's trying to buy our first home, super excited about it, love Manitou. But I guess coming as the homeowner, we're seeing a house that we know needs to be fixed. Like, it has been absolutely neglected. The more that Josh has demoed and his guys have demoed, the more that they have to demo and realize how neglected this house has really been. So it's I think the hard part is coming in and realizing that there's more work to be done than we originally realized, but also, you know, there's certain, you know, rules that we need to make sure we stay inside. And I know Josh has done his best to make sure that he's communicating and all of that kind of stuff. But in order to make this house what it should be, it takes a lot of work. And for, a person to come in and buy a home like this and want to have the guts to fix it, is a really big deal. And I guess I just ask that that's considered, that, instead of this house sitting there for another however many years, just falling apart to a point where it can't even be fixed anymore, we're going to come in and actually make it better than it was. So I just ask that that's considered, that like we are trying to make it better and we want to work, with you all and try to make this right. But there's also the other side of like, we can only do so much. We only have so much money to try to make this happen. And if, I just hope that we can work together on like trying to make this work. Cause I guess my thought on it is it's better to have a house fixed up that, maybe is as close as possible to that historical aspect that you all are looking for. But also is like, that you've got that balance there, is all I'm trying to say. So, that's all I ask that's considered. Josh has worked very hard on this while I'm working. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Any more commissioners? No more comments? We can now,
I appreciate you saying that, Ashley. And it is kind of the line, I think, as a commission, we would have to walk to, is want the town to be kept as original as possible, but also inhabited and kept up. So we all share your feelings that, yeah, I mean, you need to live there and keep it up, but it is our job to try to keep the appearances up and advocate for that. So that's, we're not fighting on it. We're just trying to advocate for the town.
right, and your efforts really are appreciated. I understand what you're going through. And living with that is also a lot of fun. I can tell you from experience, and with a baby. So, thanks for that. So now we can open it up to public comment. Are there any? Oh, yeah, thank you. May I have your name and address, please?
Yes, so my name is Leon Knights, my wife Geneva. We live in Old Colorado City, on 1124 West Pikes Peak Avenue. So we're not directly here in Manitou, but we've been alongside our friends as they searched and bought this house in Manitou. So some relevant info about myself is we've owned two historic homes. So the one in Manitou, or the one in Old Colorado, was built in 1909. There's another house in Texas that was built in 1901. So pretty familiar with the whole concept of renovating and updating something as small as a window that may not be compliant. And so I have a house that has original windows, and having lived in it during the winter, that's one thing that I know is a trade-off, is if you deal with those old windows, you have a really inefficient home. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is Josh definitely has desire to keep the house in Manitou as original as possible. I would also, I'm not super familiar with how things work here, but when you define original, I know one of you mentioned scarring and certain things that are common with these old houses. So I think there's a lot of there's a lot of these houses in Manitou that I've seen where they're obviously not original, but they're not updated as of recent. They have these attached add-ons that are kind of slapped onto the house. So you have, the way that I see it, you have the option of having these dilapidated homes that have already unoriginal alterations, or maybe a modified, updated home that's now lived in that tries to be as close as possible, and like for like where possible, but it's actually updated things like electric and stuff that needs to be up to code. I think that's the benefit now. I think that's just something to consider when you are considering allowing somebody to get work done on this type of house, where versus leaving it as is. Like, I think you're not really comparing a completely original house to a modified, updated house. You're comparing a modified old home that's still not original with a modified, updated home. And I believe that they're going to do their best to keep it as original as possible. So that's all I had to say. Is, yeah.
Hi, my name is Geneva, and we've gotten pretty close to Josh and Ashley. And when they first bought this home, like, it was a complete eyesore. And to see like everything that they have done and so far how far they've come along is just amazing, especially at their age, in their current situation. And I honestly am not sure how the first tenants even lived in that home. Like, it looked completely like unsafe. And what they're trying to do is just make it safe for their family and their future family. And I just appreciate you all. You all seem very understanding and willing to like help them out as well and also speak on behalf of Manitou, because the Manitou is beautiful, and that is why they're doing this. And I think it's also encouraging even for people like us in the future, if we ever would like to do the same as them. It's a learning experience, I think, for all of us. And I would just also like to say, like, this is their first time ever going through this. And so if you can just give them a little bit of grace, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Sorry, one final comment. As far as the porch that was removed, I think another thing to keep in mind is the structural integrity of that porch. Given the slapped on addition on top, that didn't seem like a safe thing to leave as is either. And I know, the look of the spindles, I agree, that's a historic look. But having been at the property and seeing that however long it was ago, whoever it was, they added a subfloor on top, directly on top of the roof, and just put a kitchen right there. And so you can see they added those posts there, but who knows, that's definitely probably not run through any engineer or anything. So I think you're looking at something that was already there that was unsafe. And now you remove that along with the spindle, along with the porch, but they can add that back in the future at some point, but maybe not something to, I think, focus on as they finish this work up. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Any more discussion between commissioners?
Have we closed the public meeting yet?
I'm sorry.
I think she was asking, yeah, have we closed the public comment portion?
Oh,
That there's no one
yes.
else in the audience, and let me double check that there's no one online that's raising their hand to participate that way. No, the only people we have participating virtually right now via the Zoom link are all of us that are panelists.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, I, I guess what I was asking is that, usually the commissioners, we talk among ourselves a little bit and then we make motions. I would just like to say that I can appreciate what they're going through. It's one of those, you do it or you don't do it, and it's difficult, and water lines are amazing and in Manitou when you have to replace things. So I really understand from my own experience about things like that and the surprises. I think though Doug's comment about getting new posts that are very similar to the ones that are there and the lattice work is an important addition to this house. Because otherwise it loses that piece of history. And we're already changing the windows probably and changing some of the sizes and some of the things. And it seems there was some confusing conversations about what needed to be done before and after that would have maybe solved some of this. But for now, I can see a condition is that the porch has to get restored to the way it was. I'm not sure we have to put a time on it. I'd have to ask staff. We don't have to say it has to be done in 6 months, but I do think that somehow it has to be done. I'm not sure the cost of the 3 or 4 posts and the lattice work. Just don't know that.
Yeah, and I would suggest if you did want to impose some kind of a condition like that, that you could condition future MCAC approvals for this property on the restoration of that porch. Maybe that's something that you want to consider.
Okay, I just didn't know how we go about it, because I do think that without it, it takes away some of the historic standing there. And I'm glad that someone purchased it, a family that really wants to restore things in Manitou, because that's what we're about. But we also have to be loyal to the historic, and this is a contributing. We have lots of homes that aren't contributing, but this is a contributing home. So I really would like to see a condition like that.
So could we ask our attorney to clarify? I didn't quite get exactly what you were suggesting, that we could put a condition on that when it becomes economically feasible, we would like to see the porch restored. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think I'm just saying that you could approve this MCAC, but condition the approval of any future MCACs of this property on the restoration of the porch. And I don't know if you need to have, as Ms. Porter said, I don't know if you need to have a strict timeline on that, but it sounds like this property is going to come back for further MCACs.
So what I understand is that you're suggesting we could approve the MCAC as presented, but with the condition that if and when they come back for an additional MCAC, that we would like to see the porch, the historic, presumably historic porch reestablished. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. I mean, and you could have a timeline as well. You could approve on the condition that they come back with an application for the restoration of the porch within the next 9 months or so. So that's really up to you all. I just wanted you to know that, there's options and some creativity in the conditions.
Yeah,
What I worry about is that how we would make sure that eventually that would be fixed. But I worry that another structure would be put into the porch, a different porch would be put on, and then in the future sometime they would do it historically. I just would like us to have some protection, just because sometimes people get into historic buildings and just change things, and then we're sort of caught like, well, it's done now, so what should we do?
Yeah, and I guess I would just say that the conditions right now that you're considering aren't the only recourse that the city has. You could initiate code enforcement to require the restoration of a historic structure that was demolished without prior permission. So there's also kind of that collateral option through code enforcement. I know, we're not the body that's considering that, but that's out there.
And my
Just-
understanding is that it was administratively approved, the
Yeah,
demolition.
so-
So I don't think that would be appropriate at all, frankly.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Nichols. The administrative approval was for the enclosed area above. As that we received a letter from the engineer stating that it was an imminent hazard and therefore needed to be removed. And so I also, not that my opinion matters on that, but I think that's where, when we talk about code enforcement or taking that to court from an enforcement standpoint, would be kind of a challenge, because it sounds like as that addition that was not original was taken down, how it had been sort of improperly constructed on top of it sort of compromised what was remaining of the historic structure, which also had that come down. So I appreciate the options, though, in terms of different ways to condition it. And my original turning on of my microphone was that is something we can note in the property file as they come back for any additional MCACs, and include that in the project background when those MCACs come back before this body.
What would be some of those future MCACs?
I don't think that there's any planned at this time, just based on my interaction with this application is limited at this time, but it sounds like what they're doing is primarily an interior remodel. The windows are the only item that's on the exterior at this time to get it livable, and then sort of go from there. And I don't know that they have anything immediately planned, but if there were any other changes to the exterior, we brought back, and that's something we continue to talk about.
Doug, what do you think would be a way to do it?
I feel sorry for these guys because I think they really want to do the right thing, and I think they just kind of pulled the gun prematurely, and somewhere they were misadvised. Obviously we would like to have seen the windows before they were replaced. That way you could have bought something a little bit more in kind, but that's a little too late now. As far as the porch, I think giving a timeline of not, 9 months, like 3 years would be more like it. I'd be willing to say that because it is such an important architectural element of the building that is obviously original to the building. One of the things that I have to again say is, I researched the property a little bit once I got the package and saw that we were hearing this. I've seen your track record with the regional building department. You guys got a long road ahead of you before you even get your certificate of occupancy for this thing. So that's one thing that I think that needs to be paramount for you, is that you need to work closely with your engineer and make sure you listen to everything they advise you of to the letter. So that way you can get through these hurdles with these guys, because they could be difficult. They could be worse than us. But as far as I feel that some sort of timeline, again, it was a matter of oversight. And I understand how deteriorated the structure is. I get that, no problem. But I think that placing a condition on us for future MCACs to have the porch restored is about the only option we have here.
Yeah, and I agree. I think we always try to take into account, as I think one of the public commenters said, is that we have a project that is going to materially improve a historic structure in our community, and they are committed to doing that. I think to the extent that it would be economically feasible for them to add the porch, that would be good. But we heard fairly clearly from them that at the moment, that's not an economic feasibility. And we do have economic hardship criteria in our code. So in my view, what we ought to do, and I will make that motion, is we ought to approve MCAC 2501 as presented, with the condition that when they come back to the city for additional alterations to this structure, that they would then trigger a requirement to replace as nearly as they possibly could, the historic porch.
Would you want a 3-year, within 3 years?
No,
Okay,
the motion is on the table.
Yeah, no timeline, right? It's just gonna be
No
the next time
timeline.
they come
When they
back
come
to
back.
us. Okay. I second the motion.
You seconded, Matt? Thank you. Ann Nichols has moved that MCAC 2501 be approved as presented with the condition that they will rebuild the porch according to its historic beginnings and sometime in the future when it's financially and otherwise feasible. And Matt Murphy has seconded the motion.
was that your motion, Ann?
It's basically the
Yes.
motion, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion passes.
And I have a vote of 6 in support of that motion, correct? All 6? is
6 of
yeses?
us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Shall we now move on to the Vicky Munson Duchette Memorial Grant Award Project?
Yes. So the request is to use grant funds to replace the siding where necessary, and I do have some pictures on the next slide that'll show some of the deterioration. The trim where necessary, as it was mentioned previously, when the windows were being removed, that a lot of the trim work was also rotten. And they would like to paint the house in its entirety. An overview as we saw before. And areas in need of repair. And for the grant, the wording outlined in the paperwork, a homeowner is allowed to apply once every 12 months. So they would be able to come forward next March for a new grant with the new funding year, assuming it's still $2,000 or a 75% match at that time. And so the motion language, we can approve without conditions, approve with conditions, deny, or postpone for another date. And then that's all I have.
And it's for 2,000?
They are seeking the full 2,000.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was, but I wanted to make sure I heard it.
Commissioners?
I have a question. Can you clarify, is the application for now for this? Because you've also talked about coming back next year, and I think.
Yes, so the application is for now, to fix kind of what was outlined in the example photos. I was just clarifying, because I know it was brought forward that they can come back and use New Year's funds, and I wanted to kind of just kind of reinforce that idea that it is allowed. They are allowed to come back, or a homeowner is allowed to use the grant once every 12 months. So they would be able to come back next year for and get the full funds contingent on your approval for any kind of repairs that were necessary.
Okay, so they're not, so what we're approving now would be available now.
That is correct, yes. Yes, but it is a refund done after the fact. So they would have to get it fixed. And then we would have to go out, well, the planning department would go out and look at everything to ensure that it was done kind of as approved. And then we do a check request to finance, and they can either get it as a refund or a credit applied to their utility bill.
Thanks.
Any more comments? Do we have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve I'm not sure if I have the right wording, but approve this $2,000 mini grant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion passes 6-0. I think this project really does meet the Secretary of Interior standards according to the materials you're using and the design. So congratulations.
You will receive an approval letter outlining the approval, and that will be something you'll use as you submit for any permits associated with the work.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, other business. Historic Preservation Awards for 2025. Or should we discuss the ones from last year that we need to deliver still? Get that?
So
out of the way?
I did bring the awards over there on that table. They're stacked there. So it sounded like from what I had heard via email that there's interest from you guys in wanting to help us distribute those out to those different addresses. So they're there. However, you guys want to divide and conquer. If we want to just divide them into 5 even stacks, we can do that. But they're there. That's all I have
Okay.
for the 2023 awards, but yeah.
So
they're
it's
there.
these right here on the table?
I can grab them if we want to, like I can read off addresses and you can claim different addresses if it's in your neighborhood, if that's how we want to do it, or you could just grab 3
Yeah,
on your way out
I
the
need to
door.
get out of the house, so this will be a good excuse.
Okay. So should we just wait until the meeting is over? Should we get that done now? Oh, that would be very helpful.
I'm not going to read the applicants' names because I don't want to butcher pronunciation. So we have 33 Washington Street, 303 Washington Street, and 960 Manitou Avenue. Does anybody want to claim those for starters?
I could take the 2 on Washington Street.
Okie doke.
I can take that last one.
You want the,
Yeah, I can take it.
we've got 106 Washington Avenue, 123 Canyon, and 425 Washington. Does anybody want to claim any of those? Okay. We've got 1121 Manitou Avenue, 425 Washington Avenue, and 61 Grand Avenue.
I can take the Washington Avenue one again and
And I'll take the other ones.
Sorry. We've got 128 Pawnee, 17 Mayfair, and 15 Washington Avenue.
I'll take Pawnee.
Okay.
yep.
And then the last one is 208 Chelton Road.
I think that's in my area too. I'll take it.
Okay. Chelten's in the Long Cabin District.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll drive to it then.
I don't know. Did anybody claim the 17 Mayfair or 15 Washington or the 128? You claimed 128 Pawnee. Commissioner Murphy claimed the Pawnee one.
I can take,
Oh,
the-
Shelton.
oh,
I think I took Shelton.
I can take the 15 Washington. Thank you. Okay.
17 Mayfair. Does anybody want to take it? We've got our Vanna over here. Thank you, Commissioner Edmondson. And for the 2025 awards, I had pulled the awards for MCACs associated with 2023 and 2024 and included those in the packet. I know our 2023 awards, and I just didn't have a chance. I apologize. I didn't look through those to see if there was any that just weren't completed at that time when you did your assessment, or, you know, kind of what those their status were. So I don't, if that's something that you guys have your comments from that previous year, I don't know that we, if I had where I would find those, we can look at those as well, and I can add those to the packet. If we think we need to consider MCACs approved earlier than 2023 as part of the awards process for 2025. Yes, I did, just with what I knew, mark up ones that were either requested by the city, just as part of us maintaining structures, or those that either had come back for multiples and therefore didn't maybe go with their original one, and so provided just kind of a high level there. I believe how it was handled in the previous year was, you guys took the list, looked at any that you kind of highlighted, any that you felt would be eligible for them, and then distributed that list amongst yourselves, and then in terms of work being performed, and then kind of selected out. Oh, I also did mark up any items that came before us as part of code enforcement on that list as well, because I remembered that being a criteria that was considered as part of the 2023 awards. So those are just my, sort of review of our records relative to those MCACs, and not sort of trying to sway things anyway.
I have a question, and this is just general, and anybody who can answer. How are we just doing 2023 now? Did we not have this before, and so we're just catching up, or?
So we ended up doing, was it 4 years, almost 4 years worth
think it
because of
was
the COVID,
2019,
because COVID
20.
pandemic. And we had a really nice shindig up at Merrimont Castle. I was hoping to be a little bit better attended, but it was very nice. We have a budget for this. And it, it's a comfortable budget. These are very inexpensive to generate, but what it does is just basically gives a little recognition to folks who are willing to go the extra mile and take good care of their homes, be good stewards of these buildings. So, but we felt when this was discussed, because I was still chair, or moving from chair to Susan was chair, then blah, 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 blah. Felt like we've been in this transition period, then now we have Laura. That there was not enough inventory in 2023 to justify holding another round of awards. So we decided to wait until this year. Traditionally, it's had been held in May for History Month, but but it doesn't mean that later down the year, we just can't have something. Where did you recommend, the church, or was it recommended? Oh, here at City Hall.
Oh.
Yeah, it could be because the city is a recipient for one of these.
Yes, I believe, well, we not necessarily, the city applied for MCACs in 2023 and 2024.
Yes, they have been fulfilled.
And they have been fulfilled. And I believe a suggestion that had been made previously was, depending on the size of the event, potentially having the awards in the community room at the library.
Yes.
Because that was one of the MCACs that was applied for in 2023.
Means rated G, no alcohol.
I don't
Yeah.
like that idea. I don't motion to approve it.
Yeah, so,
Right.
which is very appropriate.
So, right.
And
And,
Go
I
ahead.
have, I
He-
have,
he had a
oh no,
question.
Laura, you started. Sorry. Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, I have, reserved that room for, and we can still change it, of course, but for May 29th, which is a Thursday again. Does that sound good?
So what do we do with these? Take them to the homes?
Going to go knock on their door.
Door to door.
Say thank you for your hard work.
Oh,
It was,
yeah.
the weather was awful. Yeah. Yes. But the food was great. Those guys do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I think we have to.
Okay.
I can't hear.
Yes, Commissioner Nichols was saying that part of the attendance influence from the previous year was due to the weather on the evening of the awards middle. So as we're looking at May 29th this year, hopefully we are not having icy and snowy roads that evening. I think in terms of another thing in terms of attendance that I wanted to, as we look at our next meetings in terms of identifying who the award recipients are and trying to give as much notice as possible to those recipients in terms of making, putting it on their calendars as well for May 29th. I wanted to make sure, and I think this is why Laura had brought it up, is making sure on the next agenda, so for our April hearing, that we review and recommend the award submissions. I think the previous time we maybe did it across 2 meetings in terms of reviewing the list, but I think this time we'll have to do it as part of one hearing to say, here are who we think are eligible, and we can, I can't remember exactly how it was done last year, if the chair compiled everybody's documents or how we want to handle that, or how it's been handled traditionally. I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, so is there gonna be like a PowerPoint that has all of the submissions that we'll run through?
So the last time, and if someone else can fill in, the commissioners went to the different projects and reviewed to see if the work had been completed compared to the MCAC. And I believe on that list, I did include the hearing date for the MCACs so that it'd be easier to find the packets in the documents and ordinances on the city website.
Awesome, thank you.
So then this is really a good list, you guys compiled. It's really easy if you guys, because I have it at home. I don't have it in front of me. So, but it's so you just look at it. Here's the applicant's name. Here's the address. You go to the address, you look, they asked for exterior alterations. And what you can do is you can refer the MCAC 2302, go back into the agenda archives. And if you want more specific things, but usually the work kind of stands out, but it's easy enough. You just go into the agenda archives that are available online through the portal and look at exactly what it was. And it's kind of fun to do, actually.
All right.
Yeah, it's kick. So there you go.
So we just need to somehow divide this list up. Should we just each take a certain number, or again? Or
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for all of us to see it and then be able to talk about it.
Yeah, we'll make our own short list and then.
Yeah, and it also will help you get you familiarized with the sub-districts and the other parts of towns. You'll see things that you haven't seen before. Maybe meet a few folks, so on and so forth. That's what's nice.
And I wanted to just take a moment to show the commissioners that are newer on the screen here. When you go to the city's main page, no matter what page you have open, if you scroll to the bottom under documents and ordinances and you click on that, it takes you to documents on demand, where you can find the minutes and agenda packets for the different meetings that have been held. If you're not seeing a specific month, sometimes meetings are canceled. And so we put under the agenda tab, no meeting held, and there's a blank PDF for that, but we don't do that under the minutes and packets since we're sort of anticipating people starting with the agenda. But then you can see the packets here, open the packets, and it loads all of the different attachments there. I find it easiest to like save a download to flip through it. Just makes it a little easier when you're trying to, some of these packets are pretty hefty.
That's great. This is going to save a lot of clicking. So thank you.
Okay, so then, again, should we divide up the list now of what we should? We'll just look at all of them. Okay. Okay, and then we can make our recommendations at the April meeting. Okay, well, it looks like a few of these, they didn't go ahead with it, or they were withdrawn. Okay, well, thanks, Erin, for putting all this together, and next time we'll decide who's eligible. So also, we do need to find an artist this time, and Anne, did you not recall from years ago?
Yes.
Doesn't it say anything?
Yeah. Hey, you guys have the original art in your office? So her information.
Yeah, I can check and see if the artist's information is on that art. If it's not, I'll send an email with commissioners blind copied, just letting them know, you guys know that they're either the information is found or not. If it's not available, I don't know if someone wants to sort of have been nominated in this hearing to communicate with that artist, whether if we have that information or find a suitable mhm.
A suggestion would be that you work through the creative district, Audrey Gray, because they work with artists all the time.
With regards to that, I'm not sure how payment to the artist has been previously handled. So there may be a need to, if we do go through Crane, have a portion of that celebrations budget be allocated to commission the piece of artwork. Do you recall what that budget was for the piece of art?
I think she got paid $500 or $600. There was something in there like that. And was this during Hannah's tenure?
I believe, yes.
I'll look I'll be able to search some of the emails, probably find that.
Probably was too.
Yeah, I'll be able to find the artist, the original artist, and then I just dealt with Audrey Gray in Crane recently with the Mineral Springs Foundation, so I can easily give her a call.
Okay.
And get her activated and have something done pretty darn quick.
So Commissioner Edmondson, for the record,
I'll take this one on.
thank you.
You got it.
Thanks, Doug. Okay. She did a nice job too. I like. Okay. I guess we're all set with awards. and May 29th is good with everyone. I can look into the caterers. I don't know if you typically use someone with the city or,
The city doesn't have, I don't believe, a typical, and yes, Chair, it'd be great if you could look into that, because I believe Commissioner Edmondson handled that in 2023. I do know that the city just always tries to support local whenever we are
Oh, yeah,
purchasing our food. So
definitely.
that's the only rule that I'm aware of, so.
Right. Okay. Okay, so for the rest of Historic Preservation Month, the contest, and Matt Rose will be sharing his great graphic design talents. So he's going to come up with a nice design for our application. So we just need to get, I think, 12 photos. Does that sound good? The way it lays out, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what you shared with me had been done before.
Right, right. So, should we all do some photographs? Just go around town and do some photographs, or does one person want to take that on?
Keep the
What do you
mystery.
think?
Yeah. I think everybody should take a picture and then we can look at them.
Okay, everybody can take a couple pictures,
Pictures.
two
Yeah.
or three pictures, and we'll,
Yeah.
all right.
All right.
To avoid, I'll say a meeting by email as part of those photos. If you would want to send those photos to me, and then I can distribute them to one commissioner, Commissioner Rose, to put the scavenger hunt together.
Oh,
And I
that
can-
sounds good.
I can receive it, because if you uploaded it to like a box.com or something, then that box.com becomes part of public record as well. So
Okay.
to avoid that, just send them to me and we'll avoid sort of
Okay,
that potential conflict.
that sounds good. If you can handle that, we don't want to give you too much more work.
I won't maybe include any messages, Commissioner Rose. So if it's just a forward with no body, don't be offended.
That's fine. I just did
Okay.
some cyber security training today for my job, so I'll be watching, making sure that it's not spam. I do have a question.
What kind of photographs are you thinking? Just of different places and bridges or,
I was gonna ask the same thing, Joy.
okay.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
What kinds of photographs, places, or
Oh, yeah, and you're right. Bridges, buildings, neon signs,
Close-ups,
churches.
architectural appointments.
Yes, the main feature on a building that someone could identify pretty easily.
okay. All right, we've done that before, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, and you know, or the whole neon sign, maybe. Whatever you think stands out.
Okay, thanks.
And it's anything around town, not just certain properties. Yeah, okay.
Right. One more thing, I guess, Aaron, are we going to have a phone meeting with the chamber this week or next week?
Yeah, so I think one of the items to discuss, and I believe when we were setting goals and brought up the architectural scavenger hunt, there was an opportunity identified to work with the Chamber of Commerce. I believe it was Commissioner Murphy that shared about how that's just a really great place to reference what's going on around town. And the city website does not have the ability to support and like be publishing that type of thing and receiving submissions from people and things like that. So that's something that we don't have the ability to put on the PIO because if a water main break needs to be published, that needs to be published over the scavenger hunt. So we felt like the best way to have consistency with how that's advertised, potentially putting it on, Instagram with a spread that, kind of goes together but day by day. That I believe this is what was discussed when we talked about goal setting. With what we can do as the city is on the historic preservation webpage, have one of the things we've been trying to do is update the website to kind of have, what's new, what's current at the top of the historic preservation page. So whether that's applications or in the case of Historic Preservation Month, it would be the scavenger hunt. So we could have something on that page that refers people to the Chamber of Commerce's social media sites to be seeing the daily posts for the architectural scavenger hunt. So that was how I had envisioned it. And we can, certainly meet with, Cassandra, with our public information officer and whomever would like to represent the Chamber of Commerce. But the city also doesn't need to be part of that meeting with the Chamber of Commerce either, because this is something that's being run and by the commissioners as part of those roles. So you don't need to work it into my schedule if it's easier for you to meet on your own.
Okay. Okay, we'll do that. And I have spoken with Hayla, I can't remember her name, the editor at the Pikes Peak Bulletin. So she said they're up for printing whatever we need. And so we were thinking about, I had a date written down somewhere. It's for the last Friday in April edition to start posting the photographs. And then maybe do it for at least 2 weeks. Do the next issue too.
So a question I have just in terms of budget, is wanting to understand what those dollars would be. Because if it did end up being, I'll say, a full page spread, that's a lot of money compared to what we are usually posting as terms of a public notice in a month. Just comparison wise. I'm not an expert on costs of what it does to run a paper, but that might be something to get a quote of how much space are we putting it in, what would be that cost, and making sure we have the ability to pay for that in our budget as well as other line items from the budget request.
Right. I was actually thinking of asking them if we could have a more like an article and then post it with that. And maybe we wouldn't have to pay. So
I do know that the city pays for anything that we put in the paper. So we pay for our public notices, we pay for when the annual report went out, we pay for all of those items when they go in. So just taking that information for what it is.
Okay.
I don't
Well,
know how they do, I'll say, articles from like a citizen or something like that. So yeah, that's where my knowledge ends.
Okay.
Are we proposing that is where the scavenger hunt is published? So I don't know how it was done in the past. So the newspaper publishes the 12 photos that we have, right? Is that how that works? All at once. So from a design standpoint, I would need to know the dimensions of whatever space we're going to get and work within that.
So this is kind of being done in the spirit of what the Pikes Peak Bulletin used to do a few years ago called Where Is It? And they would publish a photograph of something and say, okay, now you got to guess where this is.
Got it.
And so this is Laura's spin on this, is that it's more historically oriented. to not only familiarize people with Manitou Springs and all of our wonderful historic buildings and its attributes, but then it's being sponsored by the Historic Preservation Commission, bringing a little bit more awareness to people that, you know, they should be working with us to help restore their homes, you know, get some grants, monies in, you know, look for resources. You know, I mean, you attended the last conference. I mean, they had stone workers, they had masons there, they had window guys there, you know, on and on. They had, you know, GCs there, you know, any kind of representation, engineers who don't know what they're doing, you know, all that kind of stuff. Heavily represented. So that's right. I said that out loud. Anyhow, I think it sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to going around town, taking a couple photographs
great.
and doing a see a who done it kind of thing.
Yep.
So, and I think that probably if you look at the bulletin, one of their small advertising boxes, or, you know, 8th page size, you could reach out to Hala. She'd be willing to work with you, and, you know, so if you're going to be designing it, reach out to her and say, what are the costs of these and what would that reflect with the city? You know, is there a special rate there? So on and so forth. The only other suggestion I could make to that is that if it was done through the Heritage Center, then they're a 501c3. So it could be published under public service announcement, which is free or very, very low rate.
So I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get my head around it. So, how many photos at a time do we want to have in the paper?
How many photos this time?
Well, I think all 12 at once.
So we would need a bigger spot.
it's a
So,
big-
so if we're talking about an 8th page, it's gonna be like that size. And we can't have 12 photos in that size. We would have to
yeah,
start
I'm
now,
trying
is
to
kind of what I'm
think.
saying, start now publishing photos to get 12 of them in there before our contests, right?
Oh, well, I'm thinking, what did I have before? I think about a quarter page. Let me get the dimensions from Hala and,
Okay.
and the costs.
And you might also just talk to Lynn about doing an article.
Yeah.
Again,
Mhm.
it's just, if it's an article, we don't have to pay for it.
Right.
And they could have half of the
Right.
pictures or all of them in the article. So I think
Okay.
we ought to pursue
Well,
that.
you know,
approach.
I tried Lynn several times, phoning and
He's
emailing.
hard to get, but you can,
Okay, okay.
So are we gonna be doing this in tandem with the Instagram, is it the City of Commerce? Or
With the awards,
the,
yes, because,
or no, the scavenger hunt with the that Instagram page? Sorry, Aaron, you mentioned it earlier.
Oh, I am not an expert on social media. I'm not on Instagram anymore, but I believe the Chamber of Commerce
Yeah,
has an
Chamber of
Instagram
Commerce,
and
yeah.
Facebook. If it is appropriate, I don't know if we want to, for the purposes of this meeting, it sounds like some additional information is needed in order for the commission to make a decision. So we'll have this agenda item on the April meeting. And maybe as part of that, there's 2 options brought forward from a funding standpoint of doing them all at once, breaking them up into 4 weeks throughout the preservation month, with the final one being posted after the awards banquet or something like that, and information on the article. I think the Heritage Center and any partners that you guys identify that align with that vision sound great. And if that is helpful, that's fine. So I will say from a public notice perspective, we do submit our public notice for hearing in the Pikes Peak Bulletin, and we do that by Tuesday at noon before that Friday posting. However, the column inches that our public notice take up is very different than like a full page article or something like that. So if it was larger, that would be wanting to communicate with that in advance, which it sounds like we would be from the different options and cost standpoint.
Right. Right. So I'm going to pursue the article. I mean, I would think they'd be very interested in that. And, you know, I never see anything in the paper about historic preservation. Once in a while that, oh, I can't remember his name, who writes,
Hazelhurst.
thank you.
Yeah.
He talks about that a lot, but I would think they would
Yeah, I would think they
appreciate
would. Yeah,
something like that, yeah.
I
So
would think so.
we'll go for that first. And the chamber, and I will, and the Heritage Center. Because we can actually print something up to have at the chamber with the photos for people to apply. And then should people drop off their entries or mail to the city? And no?
No, not to the city yet. That's where I think the chamber might be a better partner.
Oh,
Is that they could be
okay.
dropped off there. I'm not certain, but I think they've done something similar before where they've had entries. And
Okay.
so that might be something that they're more sort of set up for. They've got one counter. We have many, so people get lost.
Okay, that sounds good. The chamber or or the Heritage Center, maybe. Okay. Okay. Also, typically when I do this, we have a prize because there's a drawing of all the correct entries, and I usually do a book that's donated from a local bookstore, but we don't have a bookstore. So I was thinking of a gift certificate from a restaurant or a shop would be nice, maybe. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything big, but it's just fun to have. So if anybody has any good ideas about that, I don't know. Okay. I think that's it for Preservation Month. Am I forgetting anything? And Matt, I will talk to Isla and make sure
Thank you.
we either have a price or we can do an article. Okay. Do we have any other old business or anything else to cover? All right. I think we can adjourn at 7:10.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Aaron and Zach.
Sorry.
So-
He's already. First, yeah.